face appears on a screen for 1/10 of 1 second. Not even long enough to blink. Long enough for a decision to already be made. In a lab at Princeton, a psychologist named Alexander Todorov flashed photographs of strangers at people for just 100 milliseconds. That is 1/100th of a second short of nothing. Then he took the photos away and asked one question. Do you trust this person? The strangers had no names, no voices, no stories. The people looking at them knew nothing at all. And yet the answers came back fast, confident, and almost identical from one viewer to the next. Everyone agreed on who looked trustworthy. Everyone agreed on who did not. Then Todorov did the part that should bother you. He gave other people the same faces with no time limit. Look as long as you want, he said. Study them. And the slow, careful answers matched the split, second ones almost exactly. The extra time changed nothing. The verdict was already in before anyone had time to think. You do this. Right now, walking past a stranger, you have already sorted them. Safe, not safe, warm, cold. You did not choose to. You could not have stopped it if you tried. Here is the strange part. You believe you are reading their character. You are not. You are reading their bone structure. Todorov and his team spent years mapping exactly which features flipped the trust switch. And the answer had almost nothing to do with anything a person actually is. Faces that read as trustworthy had upturned mouths, even at rest, and gentle raised eyebrows and rounder, softer jaws. Faces that read as untrustworthy had downturned mouths, lowered heavy brows, sharper angles. That is it. A slight natural curve at the corner of a mouth that a person was simply born with. And a stranger reads it as kindness. Think about what that means. Somebody can have a mouth that rests in a faint downward line. They have done nothing. They have said nothing. And every person who passes them has quietly filed them under Do Not Trust. For their whole life. Your ancestors needed this. That is the reason it exists. Picture a person 100,000 years ago meeting another human across open ground. There are no references. No background check. No shared friends. Just two strangers in a very short window to decide. Approach or run. Get it wrong in the run direction and you lose a possible ally. Get it wrong in the approach direction and you might not see tomorrow. Your brain built a shortcut. A snap judgment fast enough to act on before the other person closed the distance. The shortcut worked because it was fast, not because it was accurate. Evolution does not reward being right. It rewards surviving long enough to have children. A system that flinched away from 100 harmless strangers to avoid one dangerous one still won. Your ancestors were the ones who flinched. The calm, trusting, slow to judge ones are not your ancestors, because a lot of them did not make it. So the machinery is ancient. But you are not standing on open ground anymore. You are looking at a jury box, a dating profile, a job applicant across a desk, a face on a ballot. And the machinery does not know the difference. In 2005, Todorov ran a study that still unsettles political scientists. He showed people pairs of photos of candidates from real elections, American races for the Senate and the House. The viewers did not recognize the faces and knew nothing about the politics. He asked them one thing. Which one looks more competent? Just from the face. 1 second. Those snap judgments predicted the actual winner of the real elections about 70% of the time. Read that again. Strangers guessing from a face, in a second, knowing nothing about policy or party or record, landed on the real winner 7 times out of 10. Which means a huge number of real voters, in real booths, were doing the exact same thing without knowing it. Voting for a jawline. Voting for an eyebrow. Believing the whole time that they were voting on ideas. You want to think you are above this. You are not. Nobody is. The judgment fires below the level where thinking happens. By the time your reasoning arrives, the feeling is already there waiting, and your reasoning quietly starts building a case for why the feeling was right all along. Now here is the part that turns the whole thing upside down. The face that your brain trusts is not the face of an honest person. It is just a face. And the people who exploit human beings for a living know this better than anyone. Consider what a con artist actually is. Not a mastermind. A face. Study after study of successful fraudsters finds the same thing again and again. They look trustworthy. That is the entire product. Ted Bundy was described over and over by people who met him as charming, clean cut, easy to trust, the kind of face you would help move a couch. That trust was the weapon. He used the exact reflex that kept your ancestors alive, and he turned it into a lure. The upturned mouth, the soft open brow, the features your snap system reads as safe. A predator can be born with them just as easily as anyone else. Your brain is running a filter that sorts by bone structure, and bone structure does not correlate with the soul underneath it at all. So the very shortcut built to protect you from dangerous strangers is the one that hands you straight to the most dangerous strangers of all, because they are the ones who learn to look safe. There is a mirror image of this, and it might be worse. For every charming predator who slips through, there is a person with a resting downturned mouth and heavy brows who has never hurt anyone. A kind person. A loyal person. And they walk through a world where every room decides in 100 milliseconds that something is off about them. They get followed in shops. Passed over in interviews. Given the longer sentence by the jury. Researchers have found that defendants with faces rated as untrustworthy are judged more harshly for the exact same crimes, and in the most extreme cases, sentenced more severely. A curve of the mouth they were born with, quietly shaping how a court weighs their life. They did nothing. Their face did it for them. And the people judging them are certain, absolutely certain, that they are reading character. So what do you do with this? You cannot turn the system off. It is older than language, older than the species that came before us, wired below the reach of willpower. The judgment will fire whether you approve of it or not. That is not the choice you have. The choice you have is what happens in the second after. Because the snap judgment is not the problem. The problem is your certainty that it is true. When you feel that instant pull of trust toward a stranger, or that instant cold recoil, you can learn to hear it for what it actually is. Not a readout of their heart. A readout of their bone structure. Delivered by a 100,000-year-old alarm that has never once seen the person in front of you. The trustworthy face has told you nothing about whether to trust. The untrustworthy face has told you nothing about whether to fear. Both of them told you only about the shape of a skull. So the next time a stranger's face makes the decision for you before they have said a single word, you can let the feeling arrive, and then do the one thing your ancestors never had time to do. Wait, and look at the person instead of the face. Because a face appears for 1/10 of 1 second, and something inside you decides everything. The oldest part of you is sure it knows. It has never been more confident. And it has never once been looking at the person at all.